Welcome to the Think Factory podcast. We got one question for you. What keeps you up at night?
I'm your host today, Chris Santomassimo, and really excited to introduce a new face to the podcast, or actually for people that listen, a new voice, I suppose. This is Derek Volk. He's the CEO of Volk Packaging Corporation, and he's coming to us from Biddeford, Maine. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate you having me on the show.
You'll be excited to know you're the first guest on the podcast that's coming in from Maine. So,
wow, hey, there you go. I can put that on my resume.
You should put it out on LinkedIn immediately, actually.
I may do that.
Yeah. We've got to know each other a little bit over the last couple of times we spoke, but
yeah,
I was really impressed by what you're doing at the company and the long, rich history of the company as well. Take a couple minutes and just introduce folks that may not have heard of Volk Packaging to what you do and some of the nice things you're doing for customers.
So we are a third generation family owned and operated corrugated sheet plant located, as you said, Biddeford, Maine. We were started in 1967 by my father and my grandfather together. My grandfather had been in the paper industry since the 30s, and my father joined him in the early 60s. And then they were in Massachusetts, and in 1967 they decided they needed to control their own destiny and have their own machinery. So they moved to Maine. Well, my grandfather never actually moved to Maine, but my father moved to Maine and started Volk Packaging. So we have a full sheet plant. We're part of a sheet feeder, which is located in Northborough, Mass, called Nucor. So we have 5 partners in our sheet feeder down in Massachusetts, and we have a full array of corrugated solutions for you, from the design right through. We have multiple flexos. We have 4 flexos, including a new 4-color App Star. We have a couple of die cutters, including a 5-color App Star die cutter that has 3 colors on the outside and 2 on the inside. So that gives us a lot of new capabilities that we didn't have before. And we also have a fulfillment center about 20 minutes away, so we can do pack outs, kitting, and all the contract packaging business that a lot of times our customers also need.
And who's a typical customer for Volk?
Well, we don't. We try not to compete against all the integrateds, because that's just not a good niche for us. Our typical customer is locally owned, if possible. Unfortunately, in the state of Maine, that's becoming harder and harder to find. But locally owned, mid-size to large size. We do have some really small customers that buy once, twice a year. But we don't go after for example, here in Maine, we have Poland Spring Water. That's not a good fit for us. You know, they buy more corrugated than I probably sell in a whole year. And so that's not the kind of customer we're going after. We're going after anybody who's manufacturing anything, and here in New England. So our market is all 6 New England states. We do a little up in Canada, in the Montreal area, and we do a little in upstate New York. But for the most part, the 6 New England states. And if you're packing something and you need to ship it, that's what we do for you.
You might say that, working for a large, consumer like Poland Spring would be simple. You're printing, the same thing a billion times or what have you. But when you're talking about smaller lots, smaller runs for smaller companies, it's a little bit more complicated because you're dealing with the shorter runs, the scheduling, you name it. How do you manage all that?
Well, that's where we thrive, because a lot of the integrateds, they're looking for that set it up and run all day kind of business. They're looking for footage. They need to cut down trees. I don't have any trees to cut down. So I don't need that kind of business. That's not a good fit for us. So the kind of business that we're going after is exactly what you talk about. Smaller runs, more setups, more design. Certainly we have an incredible design department. So we utilize that. We try to build relationships. We're not just about buying truckloads and shipping truckloads and having no relationships. We want the customer that is a lot of companies would probably look at as kind of a pain in the butt. That's a customer that we will do well with, um, because we can shine in that instance. If the customer is too easy, anybody can do it.
Yeah, true. And smaller companies, especially as they maybe they're in their early days of existence, they kind of need the help for the design to maximize the packaging and maximize the consumer effect of what you produce. That's where the design folks are really coming in and shine.
Yeah, that's where our design department really takes off. We have 4 designers; they're all exceptional, and that's one of what we call our 3 uniques. Is our design department. Uh, we make life easier for our customers. That's something that we try really hard to do. We want customers to just we don't want them thinking about corrugated. They come into work, they have enough to do. Let us worry about the corrugated, and that's where we do really well. I had a back when I was in sales. There was a company here in Maine called Dexter Shoe. They were a big shoe company that eventually sold off to Warren Buffett and to Berkshire Hathaway. And I went in and talked to them one time, and he said, "I don't see sales reps. I don't deal with pricing. I go off a bid every January. I get my pricing. That's my pricing for the year. You deliver the trucks and don't show up again." And our shoes are the same. Our shoe boxes are the same. They've been the same for 30 years. Feet don't change sizes, so I don't need any design work. And I said, "Well, thank you very much for meeting with me." I had nothing to offer him,
Yeah.
and that's just not a good fit for us.
You kind of want to have that interactive dialogue with a customer and provide an overall solution that takes, which I think you indicated a minute ago. You want to take some of the stress off their plate and some of the noise that they would worry about as they try and produce a product and get it to market.
Yeah, in my words, we want to be the umpire you don't remember. So shameless plug. This is my book, Go for Third, which is a book about leadership. And I take lessons I learned by coaching softball and I convert them into business lessons. And one of my lessons is you don't want to be the umpire that they remember. Because if you think about it, when you go to a baseball game or a softball game, the only way that when you're driving home, you remember what the umpire looks like is if they blew it. If they blew a call, if they stunk, if they couldn't call balls and strikes, that's when you remember the umpire. A good umpire on the way home, you can't even remember what they look like. And I always tell customers, we want to be the umpire that you can't remember. We want to, when you come into work, you're corrugated, you buy your boxes, they show up on time, there's no quality issues, and you barely even, other than us helping you out with whatever you need, you don't even remember that we're around. We just take care of your packaging needs. And it's only when the corrugated company screws up that everybody in the company knows the name. I don't want most executives in the company. We want the buyer to know us, and I'll reach out to the owner and make sure he knows who I am. But we don't want the owner dealing with corrugated. That if the owner starts dealing with corrugated, that's when we have.
Well, that's also an opportunity for companies that spend too much time worrying about it. You can provide that solution and just basically take the baton from them.
Exactly. And my whole team works really hard to do that. I have an incredible team of people. Actually, I just looked up this morning. We have 1,084 years of service among our 100 employees. So 66% have been with us for at least 5 years, and it's just a testament to the great people that they work with. Everybody's just rowing in the same direction. We work on EOS, so we set goals. Everybody's on the same page, heading toward whatever those goals are. And if you're not living by those goals and our core values, which are customer-centric, accountability, respect, and excellence, then you're probably not a good fit to work at Volk Packaging.
Talk a little bit about EOS. For those that may not be familiar with it, that's the Entrepreneurial Operating System.
Yeah.
Talk about, what it means to Volk and what it's done for you as a company.
Yeah, it's been great. We've been doing it for 3 years now, and it's made us a much more organized, much more focused. Like I said, everybody now knows what the mission is. We have we've had a mission statement for years, but uh, but our but our vision was never really clear. And our vision now is very clear. Basically, it comes down to four things. We want to be a great place to work. We want to thrive financially. We want to take care of the community, and we want customers to love doing business with us. If we do those four things, I'm not looking to be the biggest or the baddest or make the most money. That's really, if we can take care of our employees, take care of our customers, make a buck, and have a little extra to take care of the community, then I think we've done all that we need to do. And that whole EOS system has helped everybody on the leadership team. Our meetings are more organized. We used to have meetings, everybody would just kind of talk, and I'd be like, as Ross Perot would say, is this going to be a talk about it meeting or do something about a meeting? We had a lot of talk about it meetings where we just talked about stuff and never actually did anything. And now we have very clear meetings, we have an agenda, and we actually accomplish things. Everybody loves it. I actually discovered it. A friend of mine recommended I read Traction, and I was headed to Israel, so I had an 11-hour flight, and I was like, yeah, I'll check this out on the, before I doze off or whatever. I read the whole book before we landed in Tel Aviv. I read the entire book, and I was like, this is what we need. Well, this is exactly what we need to get us to the next level. And I'm 55. I've been doing this for 35 years now, and I'm starting to get to the point. All my kids are gone out of the house, and I don't really want to be there every single day. And I had to figure out, how do I put a team together so if I want to go somewhere and go do something, I don't have to be sitting there anxious what's happening back at the office. And now that we have EOS, I feel so much more comfortable taking off. And I was down in Florida recently, and my father came over to me, and he's retired. He's been retired for a long time. And he said, are you anxious? And I said, why would I be anxious? He said, well, not being in the office. I said, Dad, I'm never anxious when I'm not in the office. I know everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. They all know what our goals are. They know what our mission is. They know what our vision is, and they know what our values are. So why would I be nervous about anything? And so EOS has been great. I'd recommend it to anybody.
That was my experience with EOS too. It's somebody recommended the Traction book, or actually it wasn't even a recommendation as much as watching one of my clients get into it. And once you read the book, it's hard not to be devoted to it, really. What are some of the things you've been able to accomplish that you can talk about?
Well, actually, so we just had our annual 2-day meeting the other day, and just last week. So this is literally not even a week ago. We set some training goals, very clear training goals. We talked about how we're going to have a clear orientation when employees come, so that everybody that comes in on their first day knows where the bathrooms are, who to talk to for this, who to talk to about a payroll issue, all those things that were kind of fuzzy in the past. Everybody was kind of doing their own thing. We actually have our fulfillment center, which I created as a separate company 5 years ago. And just last week, we decided to merge them back into one company. And that came out of that meeting. My designer actually said, why do we have a separate company? Volk Packaging has a 60-year reputation. And now we're creating another name that everybody's trying to figure out who they are and what they do. Why don't we just say, this is something else we do? And so I called my lawyer after the meeting and I said, how do I dissolve Volk Packs it as a company? We just want it to be Volk Packaging Sanford location. And so that's just the meeting we had last week. And we said, everybody has what are called rocks. So we all have a 90-day goal that ties directly to our 1-year goals. We set 1-year goals, and then we say, okay, what can I do to get us closer in the next 90 days? What is something I can do to get us closer to that goal in 1 year? And it can be all kinds of things. I have people now that do a lot of the the day-to-day operations. So one of the things that we decided that we've been talking about for a while that we want to do is to have like a day where we just give back to the community. So we just literally shut the plant down and we find people in the community, maybe an old lady who needs her fence painted, or
Right.
the soup kitchen that needs their shelves reorganized, or whatever we can come up with. And just shut the place down and send everybody into the community so that everybody knows that Volk Packaging cares about the community of Biddeford. And so we're going to do that. And so one of my rocks for the next 90 days is to get that in place, to pick a date and start figuring out what are the options are. We don't want somebody painting if they don't want to paint. So we'll say, okay, here are the things that the community has said that we need. Everybody can sign up. We need 3 people to paint this. We need 2 people to build a ramp for some old guy who can't get up the stairs anymore. Like, what can we do to help people in our community? So I'm very excited about that because I've wanted to do that for years. And so now that's a goal for 2026, is to have that completed.
Like, what's great about EOS is you really hit 2 things that I feel are really central to it. One is, if not for these meetings that you have and the planning that you do, you wouldn't have those, aha moments where somebody comes to the table, feels comfortable enough to do it, and makes what's a pretty common sense, a recommendation. Something you wish you'd thought of yourself, I think. Right?
It literally, he brought it up with 5 minutes to go before dinner on the first night. We're at 6:25.
Mm-hmm.
We were all going down to dinner at 6:30, and he throws this bombshell at everybody. And I said, that is actually brilliant, but we have 5 minutes before dinner, so we're not doing that today.
Yeah.
So everybody think on that, and tomorrow we'll dig into that. And but one of the most important things about EOS is people have to be able to be honest, and so people have to be able to be honest with each other as a team. And I'm very blessed that I have a team that's all very open and honest with each other.
Yeah, it's about telling people the news they might not otherwise want to hear sometimes, right?
Exactly.
Why whatever the plan was before didn't work, or why it didn't work.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think it provides a forum that you otherwise wouldn't get sometimes to solve problems. The other piece too is that we get so busy in business that if not for having a plan like this in place and choosing your rocks on a quarterly basis, annual basis, you may just kind of cruise along and get to the end of the year and not have accomplished anything other than staying afloat.
Yeah, well, I can tell you right now that I used to hate meetings. And now I look forward to our weekly meetings because I know we're going to actually do something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you push the ball along, you get a little bit closer to your goals, right?
Exactly.
For sure.
Yep.
A lot of people ask, does EOS result in a more profitable company or more productive company, more money in your pocket? Are you able to track some of the financials to some of the things that you're doing? Or is it a little bit fuzzier than that?
It's a little fuzzier than that. I don't have any doubt that it does. Whether I can quantify that or not, I'm not totally sure whether I could do that or not. But there's no doubt in my mind that we're a better company, and a better company that understands what we're trying to accomplish. It's got to lead to better outcomes, I would think.
Yeah, it's going to skinny down the organization in terms of complexity, if nothing else.
Yeah. Well, one of the interesting things is that when I read the book, there was a whole section about people. And I thought, and it talked about how the people that you have to get it, want it, and have the capacity to do it. And the people that you have now may not be the people that you have in a couple of years. And I thought to myself, I'll just skim this part because that's not going to happen to me. And I read it. I ended up reading it, but the whole time I thought, yeah, but not me. And I've had 2 key people no longer with the company because they weren't good fits for what we're trying to do. And those are very positive changes, and other people have stepped up, and you need the right people in the right seats.
It's absolutely true. Right people, right seats is pretty key.
and they can be tough decisions. I mean, one of them was with me for 30 years, and it just wasn't. It wasn't rowing the same direction. And I had
Yeah.
to make a decision. Am I committed to this or am I not? Because if I'm committed to this, I got to be committed and everybody's got to be on the same page. I can't have one guy just kind of off doing his own thing and go and not following the program, or else the whole thing kind of, weakest link kind of theory.
Yeah, it's true. It's amazing to me in a 100-person organization how one person can really drive the agenda or drive the success or lack of success for a program like
Absolutely.
that, you know.
Yep, absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
people tend to, I don't know, they slow down their rowing in the right direction to make up for the guy or the person that's not rowing in that direction. It's really
Yeah,
a
well, there's a meme somewhere I saw one time. It's got like a bunch of people. You could probably Google it, but there's a bunch of people on a boat, and it says in most organizations, you got 20% of the people rowing hard forward. You got 80% of the people, or 60% of the people sitting in the middle, just kind of looking around, and then you got 20% of the people that are rowing the other direction.
yeah,
And so you got to identify those people rowing the other direction first, because even the people sitting in the middle aren't going to benefit if you got people rowing the other direction.
it's absolutely true. Th- So dovetail into your book a little bit. You and I talked about how I coached baseball and softball for my kids as well.
Yeah.
For me, I hope I was a better coach than I was an actual player when I was a kid because I'm
Yeah,
not that
me
good,
too.
but I love it,
Yeah,
love the
believe
game.
me, my daughter was a much better player than I'd ever imagined being.
Yep. Tell me a little bit about the book and some of the lessons that you pick up from that. You know what I think is really interesting too, and every time I think about coaching, I get a little bit teary-eyed because I miss it. I miss
Me
getting
too.
getting on the field and but you learn a lot, I think, by trying to teach kids, especially kids that aren't your own kids, how to
Yes.
do something like that. Especially a game like baseball or softball. It's a pretty complex game when you think about it.
Yeah, it's a much more complex game. I never realized how complicated baseball was until I took my son when he was like 4 to a baseball game, and I had to start explaining all the rules. I remember having to explain to parents who had coached their kids for 3 years what an infield fly rule was, and
Hmm.
then seeing their minds explode like, what?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, how do you not know that at this point? But yeah, it's so my book is called Go for Third, uh, leadership lessons from the softball field to the workplace. And I actually came up with the idea, believe it or not. I was moose hunting, and I had a speech I had to make for this awards thing that I was going to in a few days after the moose hunt. And so I'm sitting out in the woods, and it takes a long time to find a moose to get a moose to come out. And so I had a lot of time to just sit there totally quiet with nature, which is awesome, whether you get a moose or not. I did get one, but whether you get one or not,
Mm.
it's still a great experience. And sitting there thinking, what am I going to talk about in this thing? I don't know what I want to talk about. And that idea just popped into my head. And I called it Everything I Know About Business I Learned by Coaching Girls Softball. And that was the original, but that was too long for a book title.
Yeah.
So I started thinking about, like, okay, what lessons did I teach the girls that I could kind of use as a business lesson too? And boom, 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 they just started coming. I called the lady when I got back to Civilization that was running this event. I said, how much time do I have? And she said, like 5 to 7 minutes. I said, yeah, that's not going to work. I'm gonna need at least 10 minutes. So I said, I can hold it to 10 minutes, but you can't give me 5 minutes to talk about.
Yeah.
I came up with like 20 things right off the top of my head while I was sitting out there. So I ended up with, I think, 42 or 43 chapters. They're all short. It's a good bathroom read. They're all 2 or 3 pages long. And I just take something I taught softball players, and then I get to tell all my softball stories, and then I relate it to a business lesson, and then I get to tell all my business stories. And I like to tell stories, if you haven't noticed yet.
Mm.
So I got to tell both of those stories, my two of my favorite things, and one of them involves my children a lot because I have 3 girls, and so I got to teach them all those kinds of life lessons, and it's just invaluable. And I just loved every minute of it. And my last softball player graduated from University of Maine a couple of years ago and is now living out in Denver, Colorado, and doing like 6 or 7 lessons every Sunday. So she's very busy, or Saturday or whatever. Every weekend she's doing pitching lessons. So
that's cool.
she's passing it on, which is wonderful.
That's great. Think about one or two for examples from the book that really rise to the top for you.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll do Go for Third, as that's the title of the book. So the theory behind Go for Third is when I would get a player to first base, especially with a no outs or 1 out. In softball, unlike baseball, there's a lot of small ball, there's a lot of bunting,
Right.
and a lot of stealing. And so that doesn't happen as much in baseball because the base paths are so long. But with 60-foot base paths, there's a lot of bunting and stealing. And so I would always inevitably bunt the next girl. And they knew I was bunting the next girl. But my goal, I used to tell the girls, your objective is not to get to second. They know you're trying to get to second. You want to go try to get to third. Go for third. And make them make the play. Make people beat you. And so they have to pick up the ball, throw it to first, make the out at first, the force out. Then they have to transfer the ball to the glove and throw it all the way across the field. The girl's got to be covering third, who's probably the shortstop or the left fielder has to know to cover third, and they have to catch it and make the tag. All you got to do is run. You just have to run fast and don't hesitate. And so make them beat you. And that's what I always tell my team as well. Make the competition beat us. Like if they beat us fair and square, if they out-design us, if they out-service us, if they out-hustle us, God forbid, then, okay, we lost. It's not you're going to lose some. But make them beat you. Don't just play it safe. So that's my first lesson. And then using the small ball, because I mentioned small ball, which leads me to another lesson, and that's small ball matters. And so that's the name of the chapter. And like I said, in baseball and softball, especially softball, there's a lot of small ball. So, and in business, especially with employees and with customers, small ball matters. Like everybody loves the big annual award ceremony and the associate of the month and all the accolades for, oh, here, you've been here 25 years, yay. But they know we're going to do that. Like that's part of every business does that practically. It's the little things you do. It's reaching out to them when their kid is sick, or like the story I tell is, I went to Denver where my daughter lives, and I have an employee who's a Broncos fan, and I happen to know he's a Broncos fan. So I brought him a Broncos hat in Denver and brought it back to him. I could have gone to the Maine mall to Lids and bought him a Broncos hat. He wouldn't know the difference.
Right.
But the fact that I went to Denver and he knew I was in Denver because, Facebook and everything, and I brought back from Denver a Broncos hat, the fact that I was out visiting my daughter but thought of him, that matters.
Mm-hmm.
Those little things are what separate you. And you do the same thing with a customer. Something happens to a customer, I always tell my sales reps, I want to know if you're visiting a customer, you find out his mom died. I want to know those things because I'll call them and say, hey, sorry about your mom. And it's just little things that matter. I want to know if I have a customer who's a Cowboys fan and I'm reading the newspaper, or I get my Sports Illustrated and there's a story about the 1991 Cowboys. I'm going to rip it out and I'm going to mail it to him. Hey, I was thinking about you. I know you're a Cowboys fan. It's the small ball that really makes the difference.
That's true. And, I think it goes down even another level, just those little singles that you hit in terms of providing a solution for customers, making their lives easier every day. That means a lot too, right?
Yeah.
And if you translate it to baseball, I love when the MLB guys are playing small ball. It's a lot more interesting too, and I think that translates the business a little bit too, right?
Exactly. It is more interesting. You never know what's going to happen.
Because the average, your average is going to be a lot less when you're trying to hit home runs every time you get up, as opposed to just putting the ball in play, right?
Yeah, and everybody's. I mean, everybody loves home runs. There's nothing wrong with. We certainly love scoring a big giant customer, but I'll tell you right now, I would rather have 10 $50,000 accounts than one $500,000 account. If you lose it, it's not as threatening to the company. It doesn't ruin the salesman's day, and you can build relationships with a $50,000 account that you can't build with a $500,000 account. Doesn't It's not all about price. They actually, you can actually make human contacts. And with AI now, human to human contact is more important than it's ever been. I was telling my sales reps that just recently. I said, people now assume everything is fake. Like everything, every video I send my kids, they're like, Dad, that's AI. I'm like,
It
it's
ruins
still,
Instagram, doesn't it?
yeah,
It really does. Yeah.
it's still a cute baby and a puppy.
Yeah.
But they're like, Dad, that's AI. And so they assume everything is fake. And
Yeah.
so the world is headed to, you call customer service, you get AI. You do this, you get AI. I have sales where I have emails that come into me now, and I know it's AI that generated it.
Yeah.
And so when you get face to face with somebody in the next 10, 15, 3 years, it's going to be more important than it ever was in the past.
I really hope the pendulum swings back a little bit. We just like everything else, AI is pushing people to an extreme. They won't even write anything themselves anymore, or
Yeah,
they won't do anything personal. But I do think that that's going to get stale at some point. But
I
it's the people that are going to be more personal that are going to succeed, I think.
yeah, yeah.
How
People and now they're like, oh, you can have AI write handwritten notes to people, and it looks, and you just show AI what your handwriting is, and tell it to write a handwritten note, and it'll make a handwritten note. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's why everything. But you can't AI someone sitting in front of you.
it's
You can't an
true.
AI.
Yeah, and when you're dealing with a complex problem, AI is not going to solve it either, right?
Nope, it's not. And yeah, so it's going to be interesting. It's certainly changing the world really fast, and you can't ignore it because it'd be like being in 1996 and saying, I'm not going to do that internet thing.
Right. And here we are, right?
Here we are.
I really hope it doesn't isolate people more than more than the internet and social media already has.
Yeah,
It's awfully difficult to have a relationship with people who aren't used to having a relationship.
it's really hard. It's really hard, I think, to be a young person today with everything going, all this stay home. And my daughter's ex-boyfriend got an internship a couple of years ago at a big company here in Maine, and he had to go in one day for the whole summer. What is he getting out of that internship? When I was that age, I would go into, what's now my company, and I would sit here and I would sit and just listen to people talk. I learned more by just sitting in lunch discussions and quote unquote water cooler discussions than I'm going to learn sitting in my home, in my living room on a, I think he had an internship. I don't know what he got out of that internship. I can't imagine he got a whole lot out of it.
I
So
guess
I
he
don't,
gets
I
to
hope
say he had one,
he
maybe,
gets to say he had one, right? But I think he's losing a lot. I think young people, but when they're forced to do these remote internships and remote working, there's a price to pay for that. Humans were not meant to not be around other humans. We just weren't. It's not how we're built. It's not how God created us. He created us to be in fellowship, and that's just a anthropological fact.
I think that's true. And I remember as a young lawyer, just, you come out of school and, you think you know stuff and you realize how little you really know, but you need to figure out who you are in addition to being able to be good with the skills, right? You got to figure out who you are. And I think I know I'm different, way different now, 34 years later than when I started. And it's about being around people, to your point. it's not that you're trying to copy them so much, but you figure out your own style, which is really, I think, a compilation of all your experiences and the people that you work with, work for, the clients that you serve, and the experiences that you have. And just watching people do things is a lot more effective than, watching a YouTube video to figure it out or just reading something to try and figure it out. Just watching people do it sometimes really helps people like me that are more visual too.
Well, not only that, but you the assumption when you watch YouTube videos or AI instructional videos, they don't show you mistakes. So
Hmm.
you only see what's the right way to do something. I learned as much or more from watching my father make mistakes than I did from his successes. Like some of the best things that I think that I do today as the leader of my company are because I watched my father make mistakes doing them. Which he and I'm not saying that out of school. My father was a terrific leader, but I also saw things that he didn't do well. And and if he were just an instructional manual or a YouTube video, he's only going to show me the right way to do things. And you learn a lot by seeing, huh, that didn't work at all. Or I would be in the plant and I would hear things that decisions my father was making or hear them secondhand from my sales reps. And I'd be like, when I'm the sales manager or when I'm vice president or president, I'm not going to make that same mistake. And how do you do that? Put that in a YouTube. Here's how to f it up. You're not going to make
Yeah,
a
right.
video on that.
That's true. And if I translate it to what I do, especially as a young lawyer, you're going to spend a lot of time reading. Not that we don't do a lot of that now, but you gotta read the law and you gotta look for the nuances and the way a judge might, describe a problem and what the solution or what the answer is, rather than, asking an AI tool to summarize everything for you or write the brief or whatever. You kind of miss the nuances, and the nuances, like in your business too, are maybe the answer to the problem or the answer to the question that you've been asked.
Yeah.
And it's less about the black and white and more about the nuances that you don't learn how to appreciate them if all you do is rely on tools that do it for you, allegedly do it for you. Because it's
Yeah.
only so
And
smart. I think people are going to still
right.
be smarter than the computer, really.
And we're dealing with you're always dealing with people. You're dealing
Hmm.
with humans. And I was just saying last week, I was telling my father because I was telling him all about our annual meeting. And I was telling him about an issue that we were addressing. And he said, well, why don't you just do this? And I said, because he would not react well to that.
Hmm.
So yeah, if I asked AI how do you handle this situation, it's going to tell me how to respond, not knowing that, and I'll make up a name, not knowing that Dave takes his title very personally.
Hmm.
So just switching Dave to another department and thinking, oh, Dave will be happy with that. Well, Dave, Fred, for example, doesn't give a crap about titles. You can call Fred chicken soup for all he cares. But Dave, in this, fake story, Dave cares about those things. Mike actually, his whatever from something that happened when he was a child and his mom didn't give him enough hugs or whatever, he needs more recognition. Dave needs a title. Mike needs a pat on the back and he needs to be recognized in front of everybody.
Hmm.
I mean, I have a sales rep who, if I had the choice of handing him $10,000 right now or saying that he's awesome in front of 100 people, he would take the he's awesome.
Hmm.
Because that means more to him than the $10,000 would.
It speaks to his needs, right?
It speaks to his needs. So you have to understand that you can't just type that into a computer because it doesn't know Dave, Mike, and Fred or whatever names I used.
Right. No, it's true. You can tell you how to take apart a carburetor, but it's not going to tell you how to manage people at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Because
That's
we're all
true.
humans and we're all impacted by, like I said, everything from how many times our mom hugged them to whether we got participation trophies and everything else in between.
Don't get me started about participation trophies. We'll
Well,
be on here for another hour.
that's why I brought it up.
Yeah,
Because
see?
it's there's a really great book called The Anxious Generation, all about how social media and the the modern world that we live in, going all the way back to starting with the Industrial Revolution, where men don't do men jobs anymore. I just watched last night. We just watched this movie called Train Dreams. Very good movie, very sad. But this guy's out there and he's a lumberman. He's chopping wood, and I'm like, that's a man's job, and they're all gone.
Hmm.
Those man jobs are now done by giant machines that just lift up a tree and drop it onto the ground. And yeah, you got a man probably in there using a joystick, but and you watch Axemen and they're hanging over the cliffs, and yeah, there's all that kind of stuff. But there's something about physical work that people need. And yeah, so anyway, it's a very interesting book, The Anxious Generation. I recommend it.
This is great stuff, man. I really enjoyed the chance to get to know you a little bit. I hope you're going to
Yeah,
come
me
back and
too.
maybe tell us some more stories about Go from Third or Go for Third.
Yeah, yeah. Let me know. As you can tell, I'm not too shy.
Yeah, we should figure out a time to just talk about the book because
Yeah,
the more you think about those experiences, the more I can completely understand of how what we did with the kids really does translate
yeah,
to what we're
yeah.
doing today.
It was a lot of fun writing. I had a blast writing it, and I'm not looking to be the next John Grisham, but it was really fun writing it. I had a good time. I'd written a previous book 10 years ago about my son with autism, which was a much more serious book and very heavy to write and my son and I toured before COVID kind of shut down our speaking career. Um, and that book was just, they're like two completely different worlds. Um, but this one it was just fun. It was just fun to write it,
Both
whether,
cathartic though.
whether anybody buys it or not.
Both
So,
it was a little cathartic in different ways though. Both of them, right?
yeah, it was. Well, the first one was extremely cathartic. I wrote it thinking nobody would ever read it because I didn't think he would let me publish it because it's pretty personal. But um, he was cool with it, it so I ended up publishing it, and all of a sudden now it was an Amazon bestseller, and everybody's like, "Oh, it's so raw and so personal." I'm like, "Yeah, that's because I didn't think anybody was going to read it."
You were writing it for yourself. It
I
sounds
was
like.
writing it for myself. I thought it was going to go on a thumb drive and sit in my top drawer.
Oh, that's great. Good
Yeah,
stuff.
it's fun.
Maybe we'll cover that one too next time we get together.
Yeah, that's called Chasing the Rabbit. So if anybody has a child with autism, you can check it out. It's called Chasing the Rabbit.
Excellent. Hey, Derek, this was an absolute blast. I really appreciate you coming on, and
Yeah,
I really hope you come back.
yeah. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you. Just to sum it up, this has been Derek Volk, who's the CEO of Volk Packaging Corporation up in Biddeford, Maine. And this is Chris Santamassimo from the Think Factory podcast. We'll see you next time.